Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex topics, sift through all the noise, and really distill it down to what matters for you. Today, we're taking that deep dive into navigating probate in the United States. We've gathered a whole stack of articles, research, expert takes, and our mission, really, is to cut through the legal jargon. We want to give you the core insights. You know, for so many people, the word probate, it just brings up images of like endless court fights, crazy fees, family drama. It gets painted as this really tedious, expensive thing, almost like a penalty for passing away.
Yeah.
But what if the reality is, well, often less dramatic? Still really important, though, for protecting your wishes and your loved one's future.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how something so basic to settling an estate can be so widely misunderstood. The actual process, what it's for, even how efficient it can often be. People often overlook that, even though it touches nearly every family. So yeah, our goal today is definitely to clear away some of that fog for you.
Absolutely. So let's start right at the beginning. For anyone listening who hears probate and thinks, okay, what is that really? At its heart, what are we talking about?
Okay, fundamentally, probate is the court-supervised legal process. It's set up to settle a person's affairs after they've passed away. Think of it like the official closing chapter for someone's financial life. It usually kicks off when an executor, that's typically someone named in the will or maybe another representative, files a petition, files it with the court to formally open the estate.
So it's more than just like dealing with stuff. It's a formal legal process. What's the court's role in all this? What do they actually do?
The court does a few really crucial things. First, it validates the deceased's will, assuming there is one. Makes sure it's the real deal, the final one. Then, and this is really the key part, it officially grants authority. Gives power to the executor or maybe an administrator appointed by the court. This grant of authority is what lets that person legally gather the assets, pay off debts and taxes, and then finally distribute what's left. Give it to the rightful heirs or beneficiaries. Our research puts it nicely. Probate essentially gives recognition to a will and appoints the executor, who then manages the estate. Without that court appointment, it's really tough for anyone to legally handle the deceased's property.
Ah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because even if you try to avoid probate, maybe with a living trust or something, those basic jobs, valuing assets, paying debts, transferring property, they still need doing.
Right. Precisely. The work doesn't vanish. It just happens outside the court's direct oversight in that case. And yeah, while probate laws do differ a bit state by state, which definitely adds to the confusion sometimes, makes people think it's always a nightmare, the main goal everywhere is the same. Make sure debts get paid and the property goes where it's supposed to go. It's funny how pop culture often shows probate as this, incredibly long, drawn-out mess. But honestly, our research shows that for most estates, especially where there's a clear will and no big family fights, the process is way more efficient than people think. Often wraps up in months, not years, and usually without those crazy fees you hear about.
That's probably a huge relief for a lot of listeners, a really important clarification.
Yeah.
So, okay, beyond the legal nuts and bolts, why should you, our listener, actually care about this? This is where it gets really interesting, I think. What's the real-world benefit of getting your head around probate?
Well, understanding probate is super important for, I'd say, two main reasons that directly help families. First, it gives you crucial debt protection. Probate sets up this structured, legally required window for creditors. They have to step forward and make their claims during that time. This process ensures that all the legitimate debts of the person who died, including taxes, get fully paid before anyone inherits anything.
Which is massive, right? Because nobody wants to inherit something and then, bam, find out later there's some old medical bill or a business debt hanging over it. Probate handles that up front. Give beneficiaries a clean slate.
Absolutely. It really shields beneficiaries from those future liabilities, a huge safeguard. The second big benefit is orderly transfer. Probate provides this official, court-ordered, and really well-documented way to transfer property, that formal stamp of approval. It significantly cuts down on potential fights among heirs later. The court has looked at it, approved it, recorded it, makes it very hard to challenge who owns what down the line.
Okay, those are definite pluses. Yeah. But we should also mention the downsides, the sources point out. It can take time, months, maybe longer if things get complicated or people start fighting. And it's worth remembering, all the court documents become public records. Some people might not love that for privacy reasons.
That's totally right. And those are real concerns. Good estate planning can often help minimize those issues, though. But connecting it back to empowerment, understanding probate really helps you plan ahead. Knowing how it works lets you, structure things strategically, maybe streamline the probate process for your family, or sometimes avoid it altogether. It's about making informed choices to make a tough time a bit easier.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, now let's tackle the language. Probate is loaded with terms that sound, well, pretty foreign. But once you decode them, the whole picture gets way clearer. Let's try and equip everyone listening with the key terms, not just definitions, but why they matter. Think of it like getting your probate toolbox ready.
Good analogy. Let's start with the person at the center of it all, the decedent or testator. Simply put, that's the person who has died. If they left a valid will, we often call them the testator.
Got it. And everything they owned. We call that their estate. Does that cover literally everything?
Yeah, pretty much everything. The estate is defined as everything comprising the net worth of an individual. So that's land, possessions, stocks, bonds, bank accounts, cash, other assets, minus any debts they had when they died. It's their whole financial snapshot at that moment.
Okay, so estate is the what? Now, the document most people think of as the will, last will and testament. What's its exact role here? Is it always the final word?
A will is super important. It's the legal document where someone spells out how they want their property distributed after they die. It also usually names an executor, the person they want to handle things. But here's the crucial bit. Just having a will doesn't magically make it happen. It's through probate that the will's authenticity gets confirmed, that its instructions become legally binding. Without that court process, it's really just a statement of wishes. Needs that legal validation.
Right, that validation step is key. Okay, so the will says who gets what. That brings us to two words people mix up a lot. Beneficiary and heir. How are they different? It seems important.
Yeah, this trips people up. A beneficiary is anyone specifically named to receive something. Named in a will, or maybe named on a life insurance policy, or an IRA account, for instance. They're designated. An heir, though, is someone entitled to inherit under state law if there's no will. So think of it this way. Got a will. You're looking at beneficiaries. No will. State law decides the heirs. Usually that's the surviving spouse, then kids, maybe parents. There's a set order.
That's a great way to remember it. Will equals beneficiary, no will equals heir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, someone has to manage all this. The executor and the administrator. What's the difference? Are they basically doing the same thing?
Pretty much the same job, yes. The executor, sometimes called a personal representative, is the person named in the will by the decedent, the chosen one, you could say. Now, if there isn't a valid, will we call that dying intestate, or maybe the named executor can't or won't do the job, then court appoints an administrator, also technically a personal representative. They step in and do the same tasks. Find assets, pay bills, distribute the estate. The real difference is who appointed them, the deceased person in their will, or the court, because there was no will or no executor available.
So just to nail that down, intestate equals no will. Testate died with a valid will.
So exactly. Intestate means state law rules distribution. Testate means the will generally rules, though keep in mind some states have laws about minimum shares for a surviving spouse. You can't always completely cut them out.
Good point. Okay, people, documents. What about assets that skip probate? You hear about non-probate assets. What are those?
Right. These are assets that pass automatically outside the formal court process, usually by law or by contract. Think things like life insurance payouts, retirement accounts like IRAs or 401ks that have named beneficiaries. Also, property owned jointly with right of survivorship, like a joint bank account. These go directly to the beneficiary or the surviving owner when the person dies. No court needed for that transfer, which can save a lot of time and money.
And that's often the big draw for setting up a living trust, isn't it? To keep assets out of probate.
Exactly right. A living trust or a revocable trust is something you set up while you're alive to hold your assets. If you properly fund the trust, which means legally transferring ownership of your assets to the trust, then those assets generally avoid court probate entirely. The trust document itself then says how everything is managed and distributed by the trustee after you pass, often more privately and potentially faster.
So the trust gets managed, but not by the court directly.
Got it. Let's quickly hit a few more terms people might hear, especially around what the executor does. What's a bond? Like, do they need insurance?
Sometimes, yeah. In some places, the court requires the executor or administrator to post a bond. It's basically an insurance policy. It guarantees they'll do their job faithfully and honestly, protecting the estate's assets. Though a well-written will can often include a clause saying no bond is required.
And the inventory and appraisal sounds like making a list.
That's exactly what it is. It's the official, detailed list of all the assets that are going through probate, along with their estimated values.
Hmm.
The executor usually prepares this soon after being appointed. Many courts require it to be filed, creating a clear record of what the estate holds.
And the people owed money, the creditors.
Correct. Creditors get formal notice during probate. They have a set window of time to file claims against the estate to get paid back. That's a key part of that debt protection function we talked about earlier. Right. And finally, the official paperwork that gives the executor or administrator their power. Grant of probate, letters testamentary, letters of administration. These sound important.
They are the key documents. These are the official court papers that legally appoint the executor or administrator. They grant the authority to actually act for the estate. Without these letters, as they're often called, you can't access bank accounts, sell property, or distribute anything legally. And all this power comes with a very serious obligation, a fiduciary duty. This is the legal and ethical requirement for the executor or administrator to always act in the absolute best interest of the estate and its beneficiaries. No self-dealing, no personal gain. It's a very high standard.
Wow, okay. That was a lot of terminology, but breaking it down like that, it really builds the picture piece by piece. You start to see the whole framework.
It really does build the picture. And what's interesting is how understanding each term clarifies a specific step or a specific safeguard in the process. It lays the groundwork for really thinking about your own planning. You're not just learning words, you're learning the rules of the game, so to speak.
That's a good, great way to put it. So wrapping this part up, what we've seen today is that probate, okay, yes, is a formal legal process, but fundamentally, it's about making sure someone's final wishes are actually followed, that their debts are settled properly. It provides clarity, protection for everyone involved during what's often a really tough emotional time for families.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, understanding probate isn't just about, like, legal trivia. It's about peace of mind. It's about empowering you to make sure your legacy, everything you've worked for, is handled exactly how you want it. That really reduces stress, confusion, potential fights for your loved ones later on. It's truly a gift you can give them through good planning.
Absolutely. It's worth thinking about how this applies to your own situation, or maybe understanding what friends or family might be dealing with. And, speaking of planning and how things are changing, this raises a really important question for you, the listener, to think about. We know the estate covers everything someone owns their net worth, but that increasingly includes digital stuff, right? Online accounts, photos, maybe even cryptocurrency. So how does the traditional probate process need to adapt? How do we make sure those kinds of assets are managed and passed on according to someone's wishes? How do we stop them from just getting lost or locked away, inaccessible to heirs? It's a growing challenge we all need to think about in this digital age. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into probate. We really hope you feel better equipped, more informed, and maybe, just maybe, a little less intimidated by this whole process. Until next time.